Well, joining us tonight on our show, really a special treat for us. You'll recognize the voice, I'm sure, if not the face. Brian Hauswirth of the Tiger Radio Network. Here he is. That is the most colorful tie I think that's ever been on the air on this sports show, at least.
I appreciate it.
You're looking sharp. How are you?
I am doing great, Chris. Great to be with you. I appreciate you inviting me.
You betcha. Brian's a fixture on the Mid-Missouri airwaves. You hear him on the Tiger football broadcast doing the scoreboard shows for many years now. You do a great job.
Sure.
And I wanted to ask you about your thoughts. Unfortunately, Missouri, Brian, 4 losses in a row, and the last 2 were really head scratchers in terms, I thought, of how they went.
Yeah, exactly, Chris, and it's been a big disappointment. I know a lot of people have questioned the effort. I've heard people say that, and I don't know if it's so much the effort, but certainly there seems to be a lack of focus and maybe some intensity. I think the thing that's the most disappointing, Chris, is the penalties in some of those games. The face mask yesterday, people jumping off sides, those things are really troubling. The false starts. Then you get into the missed tackles. Those are really troubling as well, and those are things that Missouri should not be doing. That said, Middle Tennessee's a good football team. They've been to two of the last 3 years. They've been to bowl games. They played Alabama very tough at Bryant-Denny a year ago. They're going to obviously go to another bowl game. Kentucky's a very good football team. They theoretically could win the SEC East. But that said, your defense shouldn't be giving up 400 yards of offense to them. They've got a very good football team. Coach Stoops does a great job. But those things are troubling. And then Locke at quarterback. I like Drew Locke a lot, but when he's throwing those interceptions, he does tend to telegraph those passes. So those are things we'll have to see what happens. They still could go to a bowl, but they'd have to win out. It'd be very tough to do that.
Yeah, it's a long shot with 4 to go and 4 wins needed. Missouri has dropped 10 consecutive conference games. And Brian, I guess that's it. You know, with the struggles in the league and lately, and now the injuries piling on, I've seen it before. When it rains, it pours. Right. What a challenge it is now for Coach Barry Odom, first year as a head coach, to try to turn things around and salvage something.
Yes, it's going to be very tough. And he came in, obviously, they had some injuries. They had some things that were tough for them. And there's 4 games left. We'll start with South Carolina, obviously a good football team, a team that beat the Tennessee Volunteers.
How about
yesterday.
that? Did you see that coming?
I did not really see that coming, but because Tennessee had been 5-0, and they've lost now 3 straight. But South Carolina, Jake Bentley's a good quarterback. He's a freshman. They got him from the state of Alabama. That's where they recruited him. Got a lot of freshmen on that team. They're young. Muschamp's doing a pretty good job, so that won't be easy. And Vanderbilt is up. Tennessee, obviously, we've had some troubles with them. We know that Joshua Dobbs is a senior. And then Arkansas, while they did get hammered by Auburn a week ago, they're still a very good football team. So Mizzou has their hands full for the next 4 weeks. None of those are easy games, none of them.
No, going to be difficult. We'll see how things go in a tough stretch. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you while we have you here about the #1 ranked Crimson Tide of Alabama. Brian is part of the radio broadcast team. Eli Gold, the longtime play-by-play voice. Phil Savage, the former NFL executive, is the color man. And Brian does the scoreboard shows not just for Missouri, but for another Learfield property, Alabama. What a thrill that must be. And how good is this team, Brian? I mean, this could be one of Saban's best, don't you think?
Yes.
And that's saying something, folks.
It's saying something with all the talent that he has produced that are now in the NFL. Chris, it's been a real pleasure, and I love doing Missouri. Obviously, I'm a Missouri person, grew up in Missouri. I didn't go to school at the University of Missouri. I graduated from Lindenwood, but I love doing Mizzou. That said, it's great to do Alabama, and they do everything there so big. I do anywhere from 9 to 12 scoreboards a day.
If you got paid by the score, think how wealthy you'd be.
I could probably retire. But the one thing they do at the beginning of the game at Alabama, Eli Gold, who's their voice, legendary guy who I grew up listening to in St. Louis. He did a couple years of blues hockey. He does a segment with me at the beginning of every Alabama football game where we go over all the games in the SEC in the top 25. It's really an honor to share the airwaves with him. And I love doing that, and I do the whole halftime show as well. They're outstanding. I was down at Tuscaloosa over the summer, got to see the stadium, and obviously that was a thrill. The thing about them, I was a little concerned about quarterback, but Jalen Hurts has answered every
freshman.
Yeah, and he's as good as anybody we've seen there in the last couple of years. He's really good. O.J. Howard's outstanding. Calvin Ridley, and there is a local connection. Hale Hinchis, while his name does not show up in the box scores many times, Chris, as you know, he's in there a lot.
He's on the field. He's playing.
He's playing there. He does a lot of blocks. Vernon and Gary have talked about him on a lot of their broadcasts, and he's outstanding. what a honor for him to be there. And Nick Saban came to Jefferson City to recruit him at Hawaii. So that was pretty impressive. That said, every game's big for them. Everybody gives them their A game, and they have LSU on Saturday night, primetime in Baton Rouge. Not an easy game. No. Not at all.
Fortunately, those of us with the Missouri network will be flying back. I think we'll miss most of that Alabama-LSU game. Darn it. Brian, let me ask you then,
Sure.
Alabama, will Nick Saban win a 5th national title in 8 years this season? To me, they seem to be the team to beat again.
They are the team to beat. And Chris, it's hard to predict, but I would say at this point the answer would be yes, they probably will. Once they get through LSU, they'll have Mississippi State. There's a lower level team, and then they have Auburn. Mm-hmm. Auburn is a team that is,
come on.
War Eagle looks fantastic. They really look good, and that's that motion offense that Gus Malzahn has done. That's a team that concerns me a lot. And then we'll have to see what comes out of the East if they can do that, and then the playoff. But if they keep playing at their level and not make mistakes, their defense is so good, their special teams. Everybody talks about Lane Kiffin, but what a job he's done as the offensive coordinator. And they lost Kirby Smart to Georgia, but Coach Pruitt's come in and done a great job as well. They are loaded, and there's a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, I marvel. I mean, this day and age, to do what they're doing is incredible. Scholarship limitations, yes, and as many great athletes as there are. Well, Brian, you're having fun with your job, aren't you?
I love it.
You can tell.
I enjoy it. I try to keep up tempo, even if I'm tired. I try not to let that show.
He has long days sometimes with multiple schools doing the scores of it. You do a great job. One of the great voices on radio of college football across our country. Brian, thank you very much.
Chris, I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Brian Hauswirth. You can hear him Saturday on the Tiger Radio Network, Mizzou, South Carolina. And then he doesn't get a break. He turns right around and goes on the air with Alabama Saturday night against LSU.
And I'll also have Wyoming at 9:30 at night.
For those of you interested in the Wyoming Cowboys, a future Mizzou home and home opponent coming in.
Exactly.
I'm going to have you on back in the near future for a scouting report on Wyoming.
Sounds good. I'd be happy.
Coach Craig Bowl, the former Nebraska assistant.
Craig Bowl, and they've got Brian Hill from Belleville, too.
Okay, that's enough. We're out of time. We're back after this.